Welcome to Angular Coder. Today we are going to discuss about decorators. This course or this video is for people who are intermediate to experienced or someone who just wants to explore about Angular. Even if you are at basic level, I guess with this explanation you will be able to get what decorators are in Angular. So today we are also going to implement and see class decorator, method decorator, property decorator and parameter decorator. We are going to try to create something which is similar to Angular's injectors and a little bit around that. So let's get started. Alright, before we continue, there is another video. If you are at basic level, I have released one more video today which talks about decorator from Angular perspective, and it is mostly for interview purposes. You can go ahead and watch that video. But if you are still here, let's begin. There will be some part which is repeated in today's discussion, so I would ask you to see those sections below in the timeline. And if you think that you want to just see certain part of it, go ahead, skip to those chapters if you want to. What are decorators? Decorators are basically a design pattern. In very basic, decorator pattern is a design pattern which basically says that the implementation of certain things, it can be method, class, parameter or property, should be different from its declarations. Declaration patterns give us an opportunity and way to enhance a functionality of ordinary method or ordinary class, ordinary property, and to become something more. Whatever you have written, it can become something more out of it. What does it actually mean, right? Instead of wasting more time, let's start by creating one of the simplest decorator there is. And this decorator will simply log whenever a method is called. Let's begin with that. Alright, so for this tutorial purposes, we already had some files created, which is in another video. I'm continuing on that. And right now we have I have created a decorators folder, and there are 4 kind of things which we are going to discuss and create today. Let's begin with simplest one, that is a method decorator, and we'll continue from that. Let me write the code and then we'll discuss what I wrote there. Alright, so first of all, let's begin by seeing our example, how it is running. So in this you can see we have added a log method which is a custom decorator over our custom test method, and this test method is called from our template file. Now if I just refresh our screen, clear all things, click on test, you can see that we have logged something which was not written in the method, starting method, test method, and then we have logged something when we completed the method, right? So how it is working, if you go inside this function in method decorator, what you have to do is basically, first of all, you have to create a function which you will use with @ symbol, and that is what you have exported here, right? So log method is something, the naming which you have given here is used as a decorator. This is a decorator. It looks like a function, but it is a decorator. Now this decorator can take some parameter as an input. As you see in ng module or component, we take some things as input, as selector, template URL, star URL. So in this way you can take something as input in this one as a method decorator. Next thing which declares this as a method decorator is the signature which we give for its returned function. Now this method is called, as you can think about it. And then in that one we have basically said that we have kept a copy of original method which is there, and what we are doing is we are replacing the original method with our custom value, where we are saying that whatever arguments you have passed, we are taking that. If we want to, we are logging something here in starting the method. Then this is something extra which we have done, where we store our start time. This is the place where actual method is done. So actual method is executed here. You can see another video where I have talked about call, apply and bind. But when we do apply, it basically applies this property with arguments which were passed. So this is the place where actual method is executed. Whatever result that actual method sends, we keep it this variable. This is an extra thing which we have done, where we say that should we log time, how much that method was taking. If it is true, we log the time, basically getting the difference of milliseconds to say that how much time that method took, and then we return the result back to whoever was calling. This descriptor, basically you can think about that your actual method, this is not the function which runs when you basically write log method. The method which is running is here when you basically call that method, and this is the descriptor which you're returning back. You can think of this descriptor as that original method, or basically an object which contains that original method. If you want, obviously you can print that descriptor also here to see what is its structure. Let's save it and see. So you can see that what is that descriptor is giving us back. It is saying that is it configurable, is it enumerable, if what is its value, this is the actual method which is there, is it writable, true or false, something like that. So you can log the method and then it will not be writable anyways. So this is the simplest decorator which we want to start with. But what if we want to have a decorator for class? Let's write a logger for class and see what it can do. Alright, so we were able to create a logger class basically, which will, but whenever you're declaring any class with this decorator, that decorator is invoked when application is starting. As you can see, our decorator factory is invoked and our decorator is also invoked with testing in it. The class decorator is simple. Basically, if you want to have some functionality with parameters sent in it, you just send prefix to that, and then you basically return a function which contains the argument of constructor. Constructor has the name of function which you can log or do operations on it, or you have its prototype object with you where you can go ahead and add some properties or functionalities in that. Later you can use that properties or functionalities to create object or do something more. Now let's go ahead with our property decorator. So as you can see, we are able to get and set our custom property, add some value into it, fetch and set it. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you what I have done here. So we have created a property decorator, which is basically, you can say, if you have added some special decorator for a property, we need to create getter and setter for it and then define that property in our object. For that, we have created log property. Obviously, we can pass some options here. If we have passed some option, we can simply, this function is basically what is it attaches a behavior to that property. How is that behavior happening? We have created a basically a base internal value, then we have created a getter, we have created a setter, which is very simple in nature. As you can see, it is just equal to get and set. And then what we have done is we have defined that to getter and setter as its property in the target. So in principle, thinking about it, it replaces this counter with simple counter with our the function which the way which we have defined. The use are enormous. Obviously, you can basically insert some instance into it when the application begins, or you can check validate something here, like if your minimum value is 3, you can write at the rate of min, and then you can simply check if it is less than 3, otherwise it would throw error. So you can do a lot of things with property binding like that. Let's go at the end at parameter binding and let's see how it works. Alright, so as you can see, we have created a parameter decorator, and you can see that parameter decorator is printing the required output in our code here. So this is executed again while definition is going on, and if you have logged something, if you have written some decorator here, this value will be imbued, or that value will be, this piece of code, log parameter code, will execute at the time of definition when the object is getting created. So that's how you can think about how inject works in our Angular, where when the constructor is getting constructed, at the rate of inject is executed and we get the instance. Let's try to do that in our own custom way. Let's try to create a custom way where we are going to maintain a running service and then going to inject it in our application. Before we go ahead with that, let's see, just revise once again what we have gone through. We started with method decorator. In method decorator, we created a method, log method here. Basically, this is just a wrapper over our actual decorator thing. This wrapper is created, you can use this kind of structures just to basically say that if you want to have some input in that, if you want to pass some options, generally we create a wrapper. Then in wrapper, we have actually returned a function. This function is a decorator, and this function is something which is actually replacing the method. We are replacing our descriptor.value, which is actually a function, with our own custom function here. And in this one, we are executing our function at this statement which you are seeing on the screen. And again, we can do some operations before and after that. Then we went into class decorator, which is very simple, which I have created very simple here, but we can increase our complexity if we want so. So class decorator, whatever you have written, is executed when class is getting created, or like when the definition of that object is getting created. So in this case, we will use in our instance thing. Let's see how it works. But this thing, in this one, again, you have a wrapper, the same structure which we used in method. Then we have actual function, which is basically a decorator, and in that function we get constructor passed as an argument, and that, my friend, where we change the prototype object of constructor to add any property into our class. So when we printed this constructor object create class, we can see that in test class prototype we have prefix testing. If we try to print test class or tc dot prototype, we will not get any error, when we'll get basically testing as an output there. So we changed the object with certain properties in class decorator. Then we went into property decorator, which is again quite simple. We create a function which basically manipulates the behavior of our target object. Target is basically our object class where this property is defined. Then what we do is basically we create a getter and setter for that property, and in getter and setter we can have our custom values. After setting getter and setter, we just change the original method's property with our own custom getter and setter at the end, at this line. So this is how property is manipulated. Then we have parameter decorator, which can be used for many purposes. For in our case, again we have used same structure of wrapping it, then actually returning a function which is a decorator. This decorator is not doing much as per se, it is just logging the method name and its parameter. Now we'll go ahead and create a basically custom way where we can implement injection of dependencies. We're not going to go deep into dependency management, just a simple way where a constructor doesn't have dependency on anything else. We'll just create a simple class and inject in our component or anything like that. It is going to be a very simplified version of what Angular does. We were able to create a singleton class and then use it. That we did through multiple ways, but let's start with basic thing. So like ng module, we have created our custom module, And in custom module class is nothing but it contains just a registry. So we have created a dependency module way where we are basically using a static class to insert all the items there. I know it is a little bit not same as Angular, but it actually shows the case. So we have created a map through our class decorator, then created a singleton class where we have a simple random number and a printing way where we can print that number. Then what we did is we created a property injection, and in that property basically what we did, whenever you try to get some value, I just basically return back object from token. I have kept set as undefined. So in this way, this is one of the very simple use case. I went a lot through this while creating this video and while creating this, because it was first time for me also. When I was creating this, I have not used Decorator that much, I have to be honest, but you can understand the power which you can use with decorators. If you spend more time with it, maybe you can use it a little bit more. Just to showcase again how it works. So even if we create class every time, this dot instance is printing our single value. So instance was instantiated with our dependency property, and that's why we got our instance of singleton class. Even if you have multiple components, I think it will give you single value out of it instead of multiple values. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please press like and press subscribe to see more content from me. Thank you. This is Gaurav signing out.